All right, hello. We are continuing our Dr. Stone finale question mark reading. We just finished chapter 228. I think there's 3, 4 more to read before it stops, perhaps permanently, perhaps on hiatus, we don't know. The end of the last one, we found out that this super intelligent interplanetary parasite race of mechanical creatures that we call the Medusa persist by offering up the gift of immortality, the ability to cheat death via petrification, to advanced civilizations who in return repair the Medusas and allow them to propagate and continue spreading into space. I think. I'm pretty sure that's what's going on here. And so it seems like the original wave of petrification was to spur an advancement in humanity such that the Medusas could be repaired and produced. That humanity on its present course wasn't going to get there, so they needed to do the stone reset. Maybe? I don't know. Okay, so we do have a lot of questions about that initial day of petrification, way back. Taiju about to confess to Nanahira. I think that's her name. No, Nanahira is a Bamani artist. Her name is something similar. Okay, let's just keep going. I don't really have much to speculate on. We already kind of talked about like the mysteries of what happened on that day. Y-Man searches for intelligent organisms to parasitize. The search method is simple. Electromagnetic waves are an inevitability for an advanced civilization. The waves emitted from a planet demonstrate any regularity. It goes to that planet and it starts raining down and petrifying. So why the bird? Why did bird get petrified? Is bird just on the cusp of intelligent enough to be targeted by the petrification waves, which don't hit animals, but do consistently hit people and presumably other advanced alien species? This story sure does bring back memories. Why'd you turn the swallows to stone before humanity? Was that a test run? Okay. It's an arbitrary species. Targeting was based on the DNA of those fortunate organisms. Turning to stone. Permanent deathless existence is cause for celebration. That's my opinion. It seems to be the logic of this too, that this is in fact a legitimate cure for death. This is the ability to achieve immortality, which I presume most intelligent species aspire towards, and that the Medusas can take advantage of perhaps this not reading the fine print of what this deathless existence will be. Alright, only to the chosen targets. Okay. So this was happening. So they did a test run where they hit a bunch of sparrows and nobody noticed because nobody even sees the petrifying light unless they're the ones whose DNA is encoded into the target variable or whatever. Okay. Sure. The most intelligent species on the planet is the one that recognizes petrification grants eternal life. That same species immediately starts discussing the matter via electromagnetic waves. Humanity. So this is how they recognize humanity as the target. Is its reaction to the petrification of the test species, I guess. Okay. Then... Excuse me, we get these iconic moments. Waves of petrification. Okay. Alright. This is how they do it. Okay, this makes a lot of sense. The rendering of Shibuya here is funny. There's like an advertisement for the Medusa There's the stone kanji in a bunch of spots. A bunch of things say Dr. Stone. Why? This is like an odd unreality. Manga no koto nara. Manga no koto nara. Nani sore? Alright. And then this is a revelation of another mystery that Senku is able to bust himself out. Because he thought so hard. This was already kind of implied that he thought his way out of it. Taiju also willed himself out of it. And Dr. Zeno and some of his associates were able to will themselves out of it. The threshold for being able to will yourself out of it with brain power is pretty strange and inconsistent. The fact that it happened nearly simultaneously, but not quite simultaneously for those able to do it, also very strange. But, you know, it is what it is. And it makes sense with the Medusa's plot that they want the best and brightest to be able to think their way out of petrification and start researching, basically going through the entire plot of the series. Everything Senku did was as expected and as hoped by the Medusas. So why did they keep trying to petrify people past that point? Past the point of Senku waking up and starting on his scientific quest? Well, I think it's mostly that they're just not intelligent enough to recognize that happens, and instead they just kind of have this one program of constantly trying to petrify, knowing that this is what leads to people creating more Medusas and revitalizing Medusas and producing batteries and stuff. They succeed in that the people that revive themselves are smart enough to not get petrified again, unless, you know, deliberately petrified. So it makes sense. I like the simplicity of it. I like the fact that it is this sort of self-perpetuating system that doesn't really require many other like assumptions or like that much intelligence, really. It is just kind of this one program. I don't know. It's hard to say just how smart the Medusas are. Byakuen. Yeah. Whoa! Alright. So this is actually why they sent a second wave. Because the islanders just so happened to be polishing these ores with such regularity. Alright, sure. I mean, I like that it doesn't introduce another element of, like, they can see or they can hear or anything like that it is just through observing electromagnetic waves. But, like, I mean, this is kind of silly at the same time that their hair accessories are what made it strong enough to tip off the second wave of petrification. Sure. Lemon communicates via radio waves. Receive messages at the same frequency. So this is what led to internal fighting using the Medusas, the guy with the creepy long fingernails, whatever, able to, you know, take over and petrify the old leader. Okay. This is like, it's good due diligence. It's explaining mysteries in the series. It feels a little convoluted, just kind of like because they introduced, whoa, there was a second wave of petrification as like a mystery and as a danger. Oh, we're up against enemies that can actually use the Medusas as a very climactic thing to actually get your first Medusa. And then, you know, after that arc really didn't have very many ramifications on the plot as such. And so when they kind of reintroduce everything and kind of retell the story and like, oh, here's the explanation behind that, it feels almost a little pointless. And it's just sort of an interesting facet of manga as a medium, that they kind of have to have this due diligence and go back to plot lines that have been irrelevant for years and years of the series continuing running week by week. And to appease the percentage of the readership that still cares. They need to explain it, even though it kind of detracts from the climactic momentum of the plot at this point. I don't know. It's interesting from that sort of meta storytelling perspective, and from like assessing the manga, and assessing manga as a medium. Um, but I think on a more cynical meta level, it really kind of seems like those functional aspects of, you know, setting up the danger, setting up the escalation, introducing the Medusa. Those were the primary storytelling motives, and then later the mangaka had to really scramble to figure out a way to make this all make sense. You know, they could receive messages and hallucinate. That doesn't really make sense to me. If they're receiving radio waves, I mean, I guess they did have the little transmitters and stuff. I don't know. This leads to the great petrifying war. Here we see Matsukaze and the Gintaro looking charge of his. Okay. They have no concept of negotiation. They view eternal life as an irresistible offer. This is looking dire. I like this too, that like they have this conception that they beat death. This lines up with every organism they've ever seen working so hard to avoid death. Therefore, they have, you know, the sweetest possible fruit. They have the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil. They have, you know, the ultimate temptation, the ultimate negotiating tool. But very likely every single planet they've gone to, it probably more unfolded like this, where they were the enemy, and what they offered was undesirable to the intelligent race. But they just can't really see the difference because the results end up the same. Like, in the end, even though Senku viewed the petrification as an antagonistic force, he viewed eternal life as something actually undesirable. They were very, very careful about how they went about reviving people and such. In the end, Senku still did everything that the Medusas wanted him to. Despite eternal life, the beings remain petrified, never dying but not taking fertile. Yeah. They're like, wait a minute. I guess they figured that more people would pop out themselves. I guess? I don't know. And here we see the very beginnings of the series again. We see some shots of the Xeno Empire in its very early phases. It's quite adorable. Again, the fact that all of Xeno's people popped out at the same time, despite possessing drastically varying levels of brain power, it's whatever. I didn't think we would ever get a great explanation for that. It's funny to see just how behind Senku was. This beautiful scene where he sees the gravestone of his father, or pseudo-father. There's the Treasure Island Man. No inclination towards cultivating devices. Far from being pretty able to produce more of them. Manikutono, not so much as replace their batteries. They lack the necessary intelligence? Was this a mistake? Did they waste a whole bunch of time deploying there? And this is when Senku first really gets the Medusa's attention. Yet, why did they not pursue eternal life? Why do they not yearn to be petrified? Like, there is, I guess, the chance that other civilizations would have seen this completely differently. And I think this in itself would be a very interesting sci-fi story. A civilization that really does embrace the power of petrification to grant eternal life, to avoid, you know, to make like schemes where the whole population is petrified for thousands of years in order to get more favorable conditions, or to become a spacefaring society where, you know, they petrify themselves in ships and then de-petrify millions of light years away. There's tons and tons of things you can use petrification for if you're like sci-fi minded. And maybe the Medusas were much more used to seeing that sort of civilization. And this is what really pisses off the Medusas. Why are you doing all of this? You're not playing with the Medusas right. Give them back. You don't get it. Why are you always fighting? Dying to meet you. I've been dying to meet you. That's right. If you're living, you're dying. If you're not petrified, you're dying. That day was the opening of the humanities negotiations with my man. Okay. All right. Okay, so we've caught ourselves back up with the plot. We've understood now the Medusa's intentions and stuff. Some of it feels a little ass-pully, I'm not gonna lie. But it's interesting and it's coherent and it's consistent, and they didn't just skip over anything, at least nothing that I can remember. And it has a lot of really kind of quirky sci-fi elements that I like. Like, I think the way they've chosen to characterize this mechanical entity has a lot of good, like, mechanical type feels to it. Like, the distance between it and organic life and human intelligence has a nice distinction. I think this could easily be like a Star Trek The Next Generation episode. And that's high praise. That's me saying that's a good, compelling sci-fi plot. That Picard and the crew come across this artificial entity. Maybe at first they don't understand that it's artificial. Maybe at first they just come to a planet that's full of petrified people and they can't really figure out what's going on. And then very slowly they unravel this mystery that these people perhaps chose to be petrified, or that they signed up for this kind of devilish bargain, this Faustian bargain, with this mechanical entity that just goes around from planet to planet, offering eternal life, petrifying people in exchange for the technological maintenance of their mechanical bodies. And Picard is like, we think it's different, but is it... My God, my Picard voice is terrible. But is it so different than the... And then he would name some animal. I'm doing a terrible job of this. But he would make some comparison to like a natural force and be like, is it really that weird? There's tons of earth animals that live this same sort of parasitic way. And then there would be some debate among the crew about what to do because, you know, and on the one hand, it's almost like fair is fair. On the other hand, you know, all of these civilizations are stalling out. They're all just petrified now. Maybe this kind of like sad undercurrent of like, well, dang, maybe I do want to be petrified before the real humanitarian, uplifting, progressive force of the Star Trek themes comes through, and they're like, no, this is actually no good. And then maybe they fire space lasers at the Medusa and it blows up. I don't know. No, there would be a more elegant resolution than that. Picard would teach the Medusas the value of truly living and not just being alive, something like that. And then they would shoot them with space lasers and be like, you get neither. Anyways, let's move on to chapter 230. I am quite enjoying this. It's not quite what I expected. In retrospect, it does make a lot of sense, though. And I'm really curious to see what's next. Okay, see you then.